Welcome to the Nova Hoopcast. We're here at Riverside High School, home of the reigning district and regional champions. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Most of the regional tournaments are over with, but not all of them. The snow has kind of messed up the schedule a little bit. So we want to kind of recap some of the region, look ahead to state tournaments. So Kevin, let's jump right in. You want to start with 2A?
2A, when we talk about 2A in our area, we're really just talking about George Mason High School. They made it to the regional final in the 2B region, only to lose to East Rockingham in a very good game, 59-52. That was hosted at Spotswood, which is down in the Harrisonburg area. They will advance to the state tournament, and they'll play Goochland in the first round, another Richmond area school.
Right. Let's look at 3A. Manassas Park, we've talked about them a lot this year. Their season does unfortunately come to a close. We had mentioned they had that big win over Culpeper, I believe, in their district tournament, right? Which was the first one in like 9 or 10 meetings.
Right.
And then they had to turn around and face them again, which is always tough. A number of teams find themselves in that situation where you beat somebody in a district tournament, then you got to play them again in regional or regional and state. That's always a tough thing to do.
And we have an issue with that. We want to talk about that later.
But we'll get into that, believe me.
They had to play Culpeper again. Culpeper does beat them. Then Culpeper goes on to get pounded by John Marshall, which is one of the best teams in the state, regardless of divisions.
Right.
So a great season to go for the coach Gary Chico's Manassas Park team, and they've set the tone. So hopefully they have a good season next year.
Okay, let's move on to Division 4, Region 4C. Riverside over Handley and Valley over Kettle Run to set up a great championship matchup at Valley. But before we talk about that game, let's talk about that semifinal game at Handley, Kevin.
What a great environment. Not a lot of people in Fairfax and probably Prince William know a whole lot about Winchester, specifically Handley High School and their success. They've had a lot of success. A lot of great athletes have come out of there. Last year, they went to the state final and lost to Lake Taylor in double overtime. Had a great team. This year, really no different. They were 21-2 going into the game, second in the state for 4A. A really strong team. And Riverside early on was probably a little bit nervous, struggled a little bit, down by 7 at half. Going into the fourth quarter, they were down 6, but slowly just chipped away, stayed in the game, real scrappy, hit some big free throws late, going to overtime, and shock Handley on the road. And Handley hadn't lost in 2 years, so a very special night for Riverside and for the game.
So their reward is then to go to Valley to play in a regional championship. Again, another tall task, back-to-back road games at two schools with tremendous tradition. Tell us a little bit about that.
Two of the best teams as far as fan support in the region, Handley and Loudon Valley. And Loudon Valley had beaten Riverside twice by, I think, 11 and 12 points both times. But Riverside's playing very well. They were led by Brett Asbury, who had a great game. Bo Everett also had a great game. Those are the two leading scorers, but there was a lot of people filling in, doing their roles. And first half was close. I think at halftime, Riverside was up by a couple, but second half was all Riverside, and they really took it to Valley. And Valley's had so much success, really because they've had success in the regular season. They've held home court advantage. So, you know, Riverside going in there had a great crowd, responded very well on the floor, got a great win. So they are region champs, which I don't think anyone would have thought at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and let me say this. Among the questions that I had about Riverside, one, their non-conference schedule was not super strong. Now, to their credit, they took care of business in their non-district portion of their schedule. So we weren't sure how they would respond once you got into district schedule, and they responded well. So they showed me something there. And then, really, you cannot understate what they accomplished in the regional tournament, going on the road to those two schools, Handley and Valley, with a team, you know, Riverside that had never been there before, a young program. And maybe, you know, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe those kids didn't appreciate where they were going to play those games. And
I don't think they did, especially going into Handley. I don't think they knew the history there.
Right.
But we got there as a packed house, and the other night at Valley, people were turned away at 6:30. So they played in two very good environments, and they finished third in the season. They didn't win the district. They didn't come in second in the regular season. They finished third, but they're playing very, very well right now. They're playing confident. And they head to a state quarterfinal matchup on Friday. That's going to be at Stonebridge. They're not allowed to host, which is a state rule, but you can play somewhere close. So back to Stonebridge, where they beat County for the district championship. They will host GW Danville, who is ranked #1 in the state and got upset in the regional final by Jefferson Forest of Lynchburg. So another tall task, but at this point, I don't know that you can count the Rams out. They're playing real well.
Yeah, outstanding season by the Rams, no matter what happens Friday night. But that'll be a great environment again. I've been impressed with the Riverside fan support. So let's move on, Kevin. Division 5, 5C.
5C. 5C was two Loudoun teams.
Right.
Potomac Falls beating Wakefield, who, as Coach Hall has said, has been a thorn in the side of the Panthers for many years.
Right.
They beat maybe not the best Wakefield team they've had in a couple years, but a good Wakefield team at Wakefield, and then they go on the road and beat Freedom. So congratulations to them. They could be meeting Freedom again,
right.
But first up, they get to play Potomac High School,
right.
who's got a great tradition. So, you know, they won that region title. They won the region before, but I know that team wants to look towards the state title for sure.
Yeah, and a couple things that stand out to me. Freedom's run, Freedom's first district title.
Best season ever.
Their first district title. They've been very successful over the past several years. And then making the regional championship game and the state tournament, great for them. They would have had to beat Potomac Falls twice. Mm-hmm. You know, so they beat them in that district championship game.
Surprised them by a lot, yeah.
Then turn around and play them again. Again, two teams, and they could possibly meet again down the road.
They could. And the way that the brackets are set up, Potomac Falls will host Potomac. And talking about thorns in their side, Potomac from Dumfries has been a thorn in the side of Potomac Falls for a while too. Potomac Falls has had very good teams, but it seems like a lot of times Wakefield and Potomac of Dumfries have always knocked the Panthers down. But this time, excuse me, I think they're in a better place. I don't think Potomac is as strong as they have been. They're very young, and I look for the Panthers to win that game. And if they win and Freedom beats Halifax, they got to go down to Halifax, they could meet again.
Yeah, so we've got in that Division 5 state bracket, we've got Potomac Falls against Potomac, and we've got Freedom against Halifax. So great matchups there. And credit to Potomac Falls, going undefeated for as long as they did. You're always curious, and as coaches, often we say, will this loss help them? So when they lost to Freedom the first time, they seem to have responded well to that. So they're certainly very capable of making a run all the way to the state title. Okay, let's move on to Division 6. Let's take a look at Region 6C first. Comes down to South County and Lake Braddock again. They'll meet for the fourth time. Lake Braddock has won 2, South County has won 1. One of Braddock's wins was 100-97, so those two teams are pretty evenly matched. One of the things, as we've talked throughout the season, is playing Lake Braddock's style. Well, that's not going to be a surprise to South County. They're used to it. They have athletes that can match up with that style. So that will prove to be a great matchup again, and which gets us, when we get on our soapbox in a little while, two teams from the same district meeting in a regional championship game. So maybe we can talk about reseeding.
And could meet again in the state.
Could meet again in the state tournament. So again, they've played 3 close games and will meet in that regional championship game. I will say this, Kevin, in that region, a little bit of a surprise run by T.C. Williams, and they eventually lost to Braddock. And then, is it an upset for South County to beat West Potomac? We thought West Potomac, and still think West Potomac had the talent to go all the way to a state title. 2 really good teams, South County coming off a state championship. I thought West Potomac had a slight edge, but South County comes through and gets the win over there. So again, Region 6C, Braddock and South County going at it one more time. How about 6D, Kevin?
6D, you have Patriot hosting Marshall. I think that's one of the better games. We've talked about that Cedar Run district being one of the best districts, along with the Patriot all year. And the other bracket, you have South Lakes hosting Osborne. I think it could be Osborne and Patriot in the final. I think those are 2 of the better teams. I think Marshall is very good, but going to Patriot is going to be a tough order for them.
Right.
They've already lost to Patriot at home. And I think Osborne has just the overall talent and depth to beat South Lake. South Lake barely escaping Battlefield in a wonderful game. I don't know if people out there have seen the Joseph Dagby dagger from the corner that he hit to win. So I think that's a very good semifinal for them. They're a little bit behind in terms of the other teams. They've got to play their semifinal on Monday, and then they've got to play the final on Tuesday. But I kind of look for all Cedar Run final there.
I think we mentioned in our predictions that was a possibility, and I would tend to agree with you. Patriot won that first matchup with Marshall 64-58. That was at Marshall. Now they'll play at Patriot. And Osborne and South Lakes, I think that'll be a little bit of a battle of pace. You know, South Lakes likes to get up and down the floor, and Osborne usually grinds it out in more of a half-court style. If you look at their scores throughout the season, they're always lower-scoring games. I kind of feel like there's some destiny involved with those teams, with Osborne and Patriot. So I would agree with you. I think there's a good chance we'll see them face each other again. And, great job pointing out Joseph Dagby. I mean, unbelievable. I was telling Buster before we went on air. I mean, that's something that kid and his teammates will remember for the rest of his life. Their season could have ended, and he hits basically a fadeaway three
Amazing
from
shot.
the corner at the buzzer to keep them alive in the regional tournament. So that was great. And, the power of social media, a lot of people have seen that shot, I'm sure.
I would say in general, the 6, C, and D, the cream rose to the top, and there's not really any surprises. The best teams have won, the best teams are where they should be, and I think it'll be good representation for our area in the state.
Right. So there's a look at kind of a summary of regional tournaments. There's still some finishing up, and a look ahead at the state. Before we talk about some other issues, Kevin, let me ask you, I was fortunate enough to be in regional tournaments and advance a little bit in my coaching career. You made it to the state semifinals in your coaching career. The season it's longer, and it's a grind. I mean, look, you're sick and you're not even coaching. You're just going to games. But maybe tell us a little bit about what it's like that week or two as you continue to make a playoff run.
Right. Well, definitely more people out there in coaching have more experience than I do. But the one time we did go, I think you have to deal with the mental fatigue of your kids. Some of the kids have never been this far. So I think it's real important to not only worry about them physically on the court and not practice as long, but I think you got to keep it fun. I remember when we were on that run, we had a week between games, week between the regional final and the state quarterfinal.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It is a long time. So practices were very short. One day we talked and then we played kickball because it had to be fun. You've got to do something else because you don't want them to be thinking, oh man, I'm just tired, it's another game. Especially, again, the kids who haven't been there before. They're used to being in another sport. They're used to being, resting or doing whatever.
Right.
So I think keeping it fun, keeping it light, enjoying the ride. And as a coach, I kind of felt like I took my hand off the steering wheel for a while, and these kids kind of ran things because it is their ride at that point. You're not going to create some sort of special offense or defense at that point. You can't change who you are. The team you're playing is who they are, and you've got to just play to your strengths. So I probably coached less and didn't try to manage my emotions and manage my team emotions. The ball went out of bounds, it's a bad call. We move on. You miss a shot, you move on. So. It is a different world. You're so excited and you don't want it to end, but you want to win. You're getting so close that you want to do everything you can, but I think less is more.
Yeah, it's probably hard to figure out which buttons to push, and there's so many emotional highs and lows and adrenaline that plays a role in it. So, thanks for sharing that. I was watching all those games that year. You guys made a deep run. But again, I'm sure when you're in that position, you're going to call some of your friends and coach and say, how do you manage this week?
Well, I know that in our circle here in Region C that our coach, Coach Shashinsky, has contacted Coach Hawes because Coach Hawes has been there plenty of times and they're sharing, what to do, and that's a smart way to do it. There's people who know more than you. Don't be that guy that thinks you know everything.
Right. Okay, well, let's get into a couple of issues here, Kevin. Here's one, and again, we're old guys. I really enjoyed the years where we had 3 classifications, and we had the Northern Region.
Here we go.
And everybody went to the Patriot Center for the semifinals and the finals. And then even after that, everybody went to Robinson. So then we moved to 6 classifications. So obviously that's going to change some things. But I guess the one I want to ask you about right now, and I'll share my thoughts, is, in fact, Mike Barbie, the head coach at Fairfax, I talked to him about it, and he tweeted something out, I think yesterday. Down in the beach area, they'll play their regional championship game at the Scope.
Yep,
and it's kind of a big event. And up here, it's at different sites. I think, there's a lot of high school basketball fans that don't, I've had people texting me that I'm friendly with from youth league or this, that, or the other, and they're like, when's the game, where is it? People don't really know, and it used to be such a big event. So I would love to see coaches and athletic directors in this area get back together, doing some central sites where everybody knows where the game's going to be, and it's going to be more of an event. I just think that we've kind of lost a little bit of that.
And I definitely agree with you. I know there's a lot of coaches upset right now about that. The truth is you can't do anything about it for this year.
Right.
It's got to be something that you talk about and you work on from now until next year. But I agree, you've lost kind of like being the place to be. Last night it would have been fun, or not last night, but Friday night it would have been fun to see everybody in one place,
right.
Instead of spread out. And even a state tournament is not being held at a location like Robinson. Like we're going to play in a state tournament at Stonebridge. I think the argument is that you want the money to be made, and if you're going to be closer to one site, that's better. Sometimes, like for our example, Riverside's playing GW Danville, that's 5 hours away. You can't play in the middle because they feel like nobody would come.
Right.
So you got to play at one site, that home site. Well, at least that crowd will come, as opposed to getting, half of both sides being in the middle. It is a money thing. I know that people are aware of it, but advocating now is just kind of complaining. I know that plenty of coaches are talking about nothing can be done. But I'm with you. I loved going to Robinson. Back into college, I went to George Mason, walking across the street there and going to Robinson, seeing, big-time basketball, big crowds, great environment. You lose some of that with the setting they have right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think as an athletic administrator, which you are now, you have to think about some of the realities in terms of crowd size and money and funding the programs. As a basketball coach or a fan, you don't really think about that. You think more about creating the best environment. Let me ask you another question. What about, because I've spoken to Brian Metris at Lake Braddock, and he feels like his regional tournament is a repeat of his district tournament. What about like reseeding? Would PowerPoints come into play? And again, we're not talking about this year, and I know that maybe the people that complain about this aren't in the room and considering all the factors that need to be taken into consideration. But what do you see as far as reseeding or PowerPoints?
Right now, I understand the issue being, again, money. For example, if in the Riverside situation, if we beat GW Danville and Loudoun Valley, who's the other team coming out of Region C, beats Jefferson Forest down there, we would play each other again.
Right.
So that's the fourth time we've played them. So the same situation could happen with Lake Braddock. So you wonder, why are we playing someone else? And again, I think it's the money. You're going to make more money if you have Loudoun Valley and Riverside playing, or if we both lose and you have Jefferson Forest and GW Danville playing, you're going to have more money being made there. So I think that's their side of it. You're really not going to see somebody from the Richmond or Virginia Beach area until you get to the state tournament. And it used to be the semifinals were at VCU. Now it's really only the finals. And it's because you have so many divisions. You have 6 boys, 6 girls, that's 12 championships, and there's just not enough time at VCU.
Yeah.
It costs money to have games there.
Yeah, so you go from there being 3 championships to being 6 on the boys' side and 6 on the girls' side. I, for one, would love it. I understand more so with football you need 6 because of kind of player safety and enrollment. I wish we still had 6 in football and 3 in other sports, but that probably comes down to money again because you have more championships, more tournaments, and people may not realize, I have been in the room for some of those conversations, it's not a big money-making event, holding high school basketball tournaments, and you've got to make money just to sustain it. Yes. And so,
that was I think the reason from going from these centralized sites to local home sites was money. The state was losing money.
Correct.
And that's really what it comes down to. We're basketball junkies. We're going to be wherever the game is, but your average fan, and in our case, if we would have lost and had to go to Jefferson Forest, we're not getting a lot of people going down there. But Jefferson Forest will. So it does come down to money. And I agree with you. I'm a big fan. If you're under 40, you might not get it, but if you're over 40, you might understand that, it used to be very different. You used to have 3 classifications, and it was very difficult to get to the state tournament. And again, back to Riverside, we only sent 2 teams to the region, and we only have 1 other district in our region. So all we had to do is win 1 game, beat Hanley to go to the state tournament. So is that fair or not? I don't know. I mean, Valley wins 1 game, loses to us, and still is in the state tournament. So, there's a lot of different factors at play. I think we're always going to go back to what we're used to and what we coached under. And that's just the reality.
Yeah, it probably won't change much unless you have some corporate sponsors come in and bankroll the whole thing.
I don't see it changing.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, we won't. We'll just sit with older guys and complain. And we said this a couple shows back, this is like the "we're too old" segment
Right.
of the show. But we truly feel that way. It would have been awesome to have a super site like they used to, but they just
Right.
don't exist anymore.
So I guess my last question is, Kevin, which game should I go to Monday night? Now, that means I'm putting the pressure on Buster to get the editing done and get this thing out. But so we've got Osborne at South Lakes, and we've got Marshall at Patriot. And I just think they're both games. And I'm going back and forth today in my mind, where am I going to go tomorrow? Because I think they're both going to be great games.
I think they will be great. I think Patriot and Marshall, I think overall have more talent than the other two games. No offense to South Lakes or Osborne, because they're very good teams. I think it's a matter of how far you want to drive, and as simple as that.
Typical Northern Virginia response, right?
Yeah, because it doesn't,
Yeah.
know, it's not easy to get to. But I'm definitely going to be at one of those games and excited not only for those games, but their championship when they play, whoever makes it to the championship. And, we have one more show coming up, and I just hope that as many teams as possible in Northern Virginia make some noise, because I still have that chip on my shoulder from, the 757 and other areas saying that we never won. And remember,
Right.
for a long time,
Oh,
we had
yeah.
won 8 state titles.
Yeah.
And then TC won a state title, Potomac Falls won a couple, South County wins last year, but
Right.
we're still looked at kind of as the ugly cousin who lives somewhere else and,
Right.
doesn't get any respect, and I'm all for Northern Virginia, so whoever wins, I hope they go far in the state.
Yeah,
For
as
sure.
usual, postseason hasn't disappointed. A little bit more to come. We'll see how it all ends up. And then after that, we'll talk more about this later, but we have the Nova Challenge kind of creeping up on us.
It is creeping up. We
Saturday,
need to do
March
some work.
16th. Yeah,
Yeah.
Saturday, March 16th at Fairfax High School. Should be a great celebration. That is an opportunity for us to all come together at the same place.
That is true.
And see the best players in the area. So we'll have more information
And
about
maybe
that
we can
coming
put
up.
a slide out there, Buster can help us put that out there, but top players in Northern Virginia, top seniors, and I will tell you that in the state, I've heard that next year they're voting on maybe letting juniors play an all-star
Interesting.
game, so that might be something we add to our tournament as well, or our event as well. So
right.
Nova Challenge, March 16th at Fairfax. We'll talk a lot about that next week for sure.
Okay, Buster, thanks as always. Congratulations to those teams still playing, and certainly to those whose seasons just ended. It's got to come to an end for everybody at some point. For most teams, it ends with a loss. But congratulations to those teams still playing. We look forward to watching the end of these regional tournaments and the state tournament.
See you next time.